is Lady Boulay, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. I hope your new year has started off well, and I trust it will end well. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all you do to support this channel. Today, we're going to talk about the black women who fueled the NASA space race. These are the hidden figures that America would like to keep stashed back in a closet somewhere, never to be talked about, and definitely their faces never to be shown, so America and some other people can take credit for their work. Hidden in plain sight, the black women who fueled the NASA space race. The space race of the 1960s was a monumental period in history. The competition between the United States and the Soviet Union to dominate space exploration captured the world's attention, but there was a lesser known story buried within the space program's success: the pivotal role of black women at NASA. These women were mathematicians, engineers, and scientists who helped launch the United States into the space age. Yet for years, their contributions went largely unrecognized. Their stories are now coming to light, and it's time to give credit where credit is due. And we are not surprised that America has tried to keep these women's identity hidden. These remarkable women navigated the challenges of segregation, racism, and sexism to contribute to one of humanity's greatest achievements. Their courage, brilliance, and determination were essential to the Apollo missions, the moon landing, and the very foundation of space exploration. When most people think of NASA's early space missions, they envision astronauts like John Glenn and Neil Armstrong. But behind every successful launch were the unsung heroes who worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Among them were the black women whose mathematical genius and technical skills were integral to mission success. They were the human computers, the calculators, who ran the complex equations needed to launch spacecraft into orbit, safely return astronauts to Earth, and calculate trajectories to the moon. So now they were doing the work of calculators before the calculators came on the scene. They were doing the work of computers before they were actual computers. Matter of fact, they were the ones that programmed the computers, or they were some of the ones that programmed the computers. It's impossible to discuss the achievements of these women without acknowledging the hardships they faced. Working at NASA in the 1950s and 60s was not easy for anyone, but for black women, it was a constant battle against racism and sexism. The culture of segregation that was still prevalent in much of the United States had its own rules at NASA, rules that limited black employees to certain areas and restricted them from interacting freely with their white colleagues. Oh goodness, we just have to keep going over this stuff over and over and over again. Even within the NASA offices, women were often assigned to the most tedious and repetitive tasks. Black women especially were relegated to the most menial jobs, expected to work as human computers rather than being recognized for their potential to drive innovation. Yet these women refused to be limited by their circumstances. Dorothy Vaughan, one of the first black women to be promoted to a supervisory role at NASA, was an expert programmer in the early days of electronic computing. She taught herself and her colleagues how to use the newly introduced IBM computers, which were critical in the space race. At a time when computers were changing the world, Vaughan saw the future of technology long before most of the others. Yet she faced the constant challenge of fighting for recognition in a space that was largely white and male. But see, in the end, it was those black women that got the thing going. They got that first spaceship into space. Mary Jackson, another trailblazer, fought for years to be promoted to an engineering position. Initially hired as a mathematician, she wanted to become an aerospace engineer. The only problem? The engineering courses required for promotion were held in segregated schools, and Jackson needed a special court order to attend. Undeterred, she earned her engineering degree and went on to become NASA's first black female aerospace engineer. She showed them, didn't she? She really showed them. And it is real that back in those days, black people couldn't get certain degrees because they were holding certain classes in those white colleges. And that was one of the ways that they got black draftsmen who were engineers to go on jobs and do the engineering work without being called engineers, because the white guys got all of the classes, but they would hold back one or two classes from the black colleges so that the black guys would be called draftsmen instead of engineers, and so they wouldn't get the same money and have the same title as the white engineers. Despite the obstacles they faced, the impact of these women on the space race and the world at large is immeasurable. The story of their triumphs is one of perseverance, courage, and a fierce determination to prove that black women too had the brilliance and ingenuity to push humanity forward. They absolutely did, and we absolutely do. The work of these women laid the foundation for NASA's success. Katherine Johnson's calculations directly impacted the trajectory of Alan Shepard's flight, the first American in space, and John Glenn's orbital flight. Dorothy Vaughn's contributions to the development of computer programming allowed NASA to embrace the technological revolution that would later propel the United States to the moon. And Mary Jackson's engineering expertise helped design the planes and spacecraft that made space exploration possible. And we've never heard it explained in these words. Their legacy doesn't just live on in the history books, it lives on in the thousands of women and men who continue to break barriers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM fields. Their stories serve as a powerful reminder that talent knows no gender, no race, and no boundaries. These women's stories are crucial to understanding the full history of the space race and of the fight for racial and gender equality in the United States. They show us that no matter what barriers society may place in front of us, perseverance, talent, and hard work can overcome almost anything. As we look up at the stars today, we owe so much to the black women who helped us get there. They didn't just fuel the NASA space race, they ignited the spark that continues to light the way for future explorers, scientists, and innovators. And what is really important is that we know these things about our history so that people cannot undermine us. There's always an effort to try to take away the hard work, the innovations, the inventions, and the discoveries of Black Americans. As we approach Black History Month, it's good to kick it off with these three outstanding women who lived long enough to tell their story. They lived to be way up in their 90s, and Katherine Johnson, I think, lived to be 100 and something. So they lived long enough to bring their stories out of the closet and tell them to the world so that once they're gone, somebody else can't go back and change the history and take credit for their work. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video. Give me a thumbs up and have a good evening.